Hello. This video is intended for the planning and building approval students, primarily for the external students, but it will go hand in hand with what we've covered internally. So on Monday with the internal class, we touched on a little bit, well, this is the afternoon class, so not all students were available for that either. We touched on some of the aspects of various different types of plans, things that you should be considering. So that should be a bit of a revision from what you've already done in your Revit subjects. And the slides that I worked off are included in here. So it's in industry and industry standards and instructions. So if we head into there, scroll down, we'll see some working drawing basics. We'll see the Australian standard that relates to architectural drawings, so AS 1100.3, and then there are sets of slides that relate to specific drawings, so our floor plans, elevations, details of sections, roof, etc., and then several other aspects of drawing. But what I've decided to do in this video is actually go into some example plans, which I'll also be putting up on this site here for you to refer to, and I'll leave this for everybody, external students and internals, to go through, have a look at all of these slides, take note from there. There's plenty of good simplified notes in there, but this is meant to be supplementary to what I'll be showing you in just a sec here. So I'll put up a couple sets of plans here as reference for you. Now these are both sets of plans are very complex sets of plans. By all means, I don't expect you to be incorporating every aspect that's included in these plans. These are incredibly detailed plans for significantly more complex projects than what we're working on. However, the reason I've chosen these plans to go up is because they are a really good guide as to potential inclusions that you can refer to later on for further projects. So by all means, retain a copy of these to use as a bit of a guide, but also in using these plans as a guide, be aware that these were, I think this one was produced in 2014. We've 5 years of passed on the bridge since then. Things change, and also not everything is going to be relevant. So these are from Queensland. There may be aspects relevant to Queensland that are not relevant to South Australia. So I certainly, these plans are not intended to be relied upon as a thorough guide, but they will provide good ideas and some consideration for elements to contain on your sets of plans. So this first one I'd like to go through is actually a townhouse development. So here we've got our title page and we've got our sheet list. So as you'll notice from our sheet list, this is an incredibly extensive list of sheets. As I said before, these are far more detailed plans than anything you're expected to do for this subject, but there's some great things for you to take note on here. So here we go, we've got our title block. It says the project, the location for the client, and it's got our sheet list here, etc., with the drafters, contact details, etc., and a few general notes. Then we launch into the surveyor's plan. So that's the plan that's been supplied by the surveyor. So that has been scanned in and included in this drawing set. So it shows the surveyor's details. Then that has been brought in. So some aspects of that survey plan have been brought in to produce the existing site plan. So it shows the existing features on the allotment. So currently there is a timber house there with a garage, galvanised iron shed, and the concrete driveway. Of most note is this crossover here, and then we've got our site dimensions, etc., on there. We're not expected to produce this sort of plan for our property at 174 Shepherd's Hill
road, but that's good indication of what you may have to do in other projects. So the first drawing, well, actually, with our 174 Shepherd's Hill Road drawing set, we'll have to do a locality plan, and I'll show you another locality plan later. But we'll also have to produce a site plan for our project there on Shepherd's Hill Road, and this site plan is a fairly good indication of things that we would want to include on our site plan. So we have our boundaries, and those boundaries have been taken from our survey plan image. So typically we've got distances of those boundaries, and this one expresses degrees and minutes of angle from the previous boundary. I'm not expecting you to include degrees and minutes on your site plan, but certainly I'd want to have some angles here in the site plan and also some distances, so that you can get from your certificate of title. An important thing they've got here, they're showing the stormwater, so existing stormwater pit, and then where our downpipes and how our downpipes and stormwater drains are getting to that stormwater pit. We've got some indicative vegetation, so you'll see the landscaping notes here saying that that's indicative vegetation. Then we've got titles showing that this is a new unit development, and then some other particular details, as well as some general notes for the project. So these are project specific notes. So we've got our area, our zoning, etc. So they are important features of a site plan. Also, of course, another important feature of a site plan is a north arrow and scale. What this one doesn't include, which is interesting, is a title down here. So typically on your site plan or on any plan drawing, you'll have a title down the bottom here saying site plan scale 1:200. Then they've got their cut and fill plan. So this, or earthworks plan, such a plan is not required at our project 174 Shepherd's Hill Road, but once again, a good indication of what you may want to include for other more detailed projects in the future. However, just a note on that, it does get, the site plan for our project does get a little bit busy with the inclusion of contours and cut and fill and retaining walls and things like that. You may actually want to simplify things for you and simplify things visually by producing a separate cut and fill plan. It's not specifically asked for, however, it does help to clear up drawings and contain some of the more some of the sort of topographic information on one plan, and then the building improvements information on the other plan. And then it gets into floor plans. So with these floor plans, once again we have some notes or a legend here that shows features that are shown on there. So we've got air conditioners and block wall, etc. So that enables the drafter to include abbreviations for things and then include more detail there in the legend. Also some general notes that relate to the stairs and some general notes that relate to the project in terms of fit out. We also have shown on this plan some sections. So we have section 1, and then we have our reference for showing where we would find that section. So we've got reference 303 ST, so that's going to be on drawing 303. We also have some grid lines here. So for our first project, we're not going to require grid lines because it's a fairly simple project. However, for our third project, we will be including grid lines. So these grid lines typically delineate important structural aspects from which we can then dimension smaller features. So they help both with dimensions and also identification of important structural grids within the property. Then we have our townhouse layout plan. Once again, delineating some sections there and notation of various different features. Quickly keep flicking through.
So our various different floor plans and a roof plan. This is essentially our roof drainage plan, so it shows the drainage from each area as it goes into the downpipe. So it enables, well, it clearly shows the calculation of the volumes of water for going into each downpipe. And then services plans. So here on our right we have our services legend, and then dashed lines to show the run of power supply to those services. Also, just as we're getting into here, you probably saw it on some of the earlier plans as well, but as things get a bit clearer on our plans, it's a bit easier to see. Typically with our stairs, when we're doing several levels, we'll put a break line in there to show that when we're looking at our ground floor plan, we can see the start of our stairs, and we have an arrow here denoting that the stairs are starting there and going up. And then we'll put a break line in there, but then show some more indicative stairs as they get higher and higher beyond the floor plan that we're looking at. And keep flicking through our various different services plans. So the same sort of features shown here. Then on to our elevations. So our elevations are showing all the, so our plans show all the information that can be presented in a horizontal sense, whereas our elevations and sections show all the information that can be included in the plan for a vertical sense. So of course we have our vertical heights here shown. We also have our grid lines carried through, so we can so we have that point of reference from the floor plans. We'll also show our ground, our foundation underneath the footings of the building. We will have our various different reduced levels, so our finished floor level, our finished ceiling levels, and this is an upper ceiling level. And typically you can also include a ridge height if that's important for the planning approval. So here under these ones we've got our proper titles happening here. So it's got our titles and our scales happening on that. On elevation we also show things such as materials, we'll show downpipes, we'll show the details of things like capping and barge boards, etc. All of the details of the external of the building. We'll also show the direction in which the doors open. These ones aren't so simple to see, as the arrows are quite close to the top of our balusters there, but we have little arrows denoting which way the doors open. We also have things such as this V to show that one is an awning window. So with the direction of swing of either a window or a door is always shown as hinge, latch, hinge. So we can see this and we know that that's an awning window, i.e. a window which is hinged at the top of the window and opens out from the bottom. It'd be the same thing if we had a door which is like a side hung door as opposed to a sliding door. Let's say this door here is a side hung door. We would have it as hinge, latch, hinge, showing that the door pivots from the left hand side as you're facing it. So I'll shrink that down. Once again, title block. Another point another feature I haven't pointed out so far is also this scale bar. So it's handy to have a scale bar as well as a drawing scale, because sometimes plans get photocopied, and the scale bar is a good check for how accurately scaled the drawings still are. Beyond that, once again a legend to show the abbreviations of things. Further elevations, so this is getting more detailed in terms of the heights of various different elements. Now once again, I don't expect you to be getting to anywhere near this form of detail, certainly with the first project. However, there may be some things in here that provide a good guide for you. Also, another thing to note, the way that they've used their grid lines here for showing the fire separation walls is not a particularly usual feature. Typically we just have a single grid line straight down the middle of the firewall and we dimension to either side of the firewall from that. They've chosen to have grid lines to the inside face of each firewall that enables the drafter to dimension from the inside face of each wall. So that's possibly for construction considerations for this particular project. Then we have some sections. So that's a it's a drawing that shows the building cut through. Now, there's several ways of doing a section. You can do a section straight through, or you can do a stepped section where you bring your section in one plane, and then you step it across sideways, and then you carry it through another plane if there are several different features that you want to show. Also, another thing about sections is that yes, sections are very detailed, but there are at times elements that you may not want to include, that obscure elements that you would want to include. If you have that case, you can possibly include a very lightweight drawn or light line drawing of an element and show it dashed, or like what they've done in this instance here, show things as dashed, and then you can also include a note to say that those things have been omitted for clarity. So our section will show our foundation, it'll show our footings in cross section. Now that doesn't always have to be to detail. Sometimes we don't want to go detailing up the footings too much because that may conflict with the engineer's information, and the engineer's information may change or be updated. So typically we show these footings as indicative only. It shows other structure such as things like floor structure, wall structure, location of installation is important. But also if we haven't included on our elevations our roof pitch, you can include your roof pitch on your section. Here they've just noted roof trusses by manufacturer not shown. So they've decided to specify that they're roof trusses simply by a leader and not diagrammatically. So typically we want to steer away from detailing roof trusses too much because we don't want to tell the roof truss manufacturer how to manufacture their trusses. That's very much their job, and we don't want to create confusion by drawing detailed trusses that don't reflect what's actually going to be built on site. So once again, some floor to ceiling dimensions and recorded levels there, or reduced levels. Further sections, and then also call outs here for section details. More sections including features such as block walls or retaining walls. Keep flicking through. So you'll have all of these plans on the Learn site to refer to at your leisure. Some bathroom plans. So we have a bathroom plan, and then we have various different elevations. So this is an elevation marker here showing our various different elevations. So elevation 5, 6, and 7. So elevation 5, 6, and 7. So if you're standing here at this point, this is what each elevation would look like. More bathroom elevations, and then our 3D diagrams. This is a grid layout, so that doesn't show any building features whatsoever. It just refers back to the dimensions for the set out of our grid. So if we look at our grid like this, for example, we can then refer back to the grid layout here to get that simplified view of exactly what the distances everything is. So from internal face to internal face, we've got 40, 45, 65, and then a wall thickness of 205, I think that is. I'll just to help my eyes out of it, yeah, 205. And then here we've brought in the level 0 set out, so it's not a full site plan, but it shows important set out dimensions. Once again, I'm not expecting you to do a set out plan for our first project. You're just required to do one floor plan. So keep in mind these plans are far more detailed than what we're expecting for our projects. But they do show approaches to dimensioning. So here we have our grid line as a reference, and then dimensioning all of our features off of that. And what we can see here is we have several layers of dimensions. Our first dimensions relate, and I'll just zoom in on that section a bit. A little bit more. And bring it across just a touch. So what we can see here with our layers of dimensions is that the way we go about doing our dimensions is you imagine a line basically through the center of the building, and you include your dimensions of features starting from the internalmost objects and then moving your way out the building. So our first dimension, 450, relates to this. Then we've got a 70 thick wall. Then we've got 1605. Internal face to internal face, and then 70 thick wall once again, and 1605. Now that 70 thick wall, that relates to the width of the timber framing. So for this example here, we'll have probably 70 by 35 internal studs, and then on the outside of that we'll have 10mm gyprock either side, making this a 90 thick wall. But when we dimension up, that relates to our timber framing. And then our next line of dimensions is once again from our wall thickness here, 90 studs for the externals, and then internal face through to the side of our stairs, which are then 910 wide, and then 110 wide wall section there. Moving further out, we've got our dimension, our total stairway width dimension there that relates to 2020, 70 thick wall, and then internal face of that room, and then an overall dimension. So that's the way in a nutshell, we set out our dimensions. And once again, so all of our dimensions that relate to this side of the building shown here, and then all of our dimensions that relate to this side of the building are shown up here, and like for this as well. So all of our dimensions that relate to this side of the building is shown on this side, and then all the dimensions that relate to this side of the building is shown here. I'll shrink that down. So more floor plans. I'll quickly flip through those fairly quickly. We've seen the important elements of those floor plans. I wanted to show you this. So included is some product manufacturers' installation information, so that relates specifically to those internal walls. So those fire separating walls have to be installed exactly as per manufacturer's specifications to carry the warranty, but also to provide that fire resistance in the event of a fire. So this information, rather than the drafter reinvent the wheel in terms of describing how the installation should happen, you include the manufacturer's details on this sheet for all important aspects of those details. And then the manufacturer's information is included over the next few sheets. These are some section details. So we don't have a title block on here. Well, we do have a title block, but we don't have a drawing title here, unfortunately. If we did, we could use that. That would be our reference for referring back to exactly where this section detail was taken from. Also, on the next page, then we've got some wet area details. So here's an example of typical wet area details, and you'll get these details straight from the Australian Standard AS 3740. You won't need to have these for the planning approval, but all the building approval students will have to do the wet area details, or actually, possibly you'll have to do that in Project 3 for the planning, or Project 2 for the planning approval students.
But anyhow, all of these details, everything you can see here is also expressed in AS 3740. So although that Australian standard hasn't been updated since 2010, I suggest you go back to the source for determining your waterproofing details there. But here is an example of the waterproofing details. Also, another important point to mention in regards to waterproofing details is this set of drawings is for Queensland. There are specific considerations for South Australia. So we have a Minister's Specification F1.7 that relates specifically to wet area details in South Australia. Those details have now all been included in the National Construction Code, or were quite a few years ago actually, but you'll see them in the 2016 National Construction Code under a section South Australian specific. So I think I'll be going through that in one of the lectures, but just beware there are South Australian specific considerations that relate to wet area details. In a nutshell, they are our floor slopes are steeper than other states. So for general area it's 1:80, and for showers 1:60. But then there are also other inclusions such as kitchens and bar areas being included in South Australia, whereas in other states they're not, and also waterproofing requirements for the rear of washing machines. So have a look in the NCC for those South Australian specific regulations located there, both in the health and amenity section of the NCC and also in the rear of the NCC for state-specific inclusions. Then got some general notes that relate to waterproofing and more section details, and that's pretty much all I wanted to show you with this set of plans. Some other bits and bobs, quickly flick through it. So inclusion of manufacturer's details, general notes in regards to NCC specific aspects, door and window schedule, etc. So I don't expect that we'll be doing our plans nearly to this sort of detail in the projects for planning approval. This is for far more complex projects. However, this does provide a bit of a guide as to the possible inclusion of certain features. So if there's any features throughout these sets of plans that you think are relevant to include for our project, by all means do it. So, and that reminds me to reiterate, you always have to think about the purpose of your plans is to convey information. You start by thinking of what information is required by the recipient of the plans. That recipient being either the local council, or the private certifier, or the builder, or the bank, or various other important or various other external consultants. So you always have to think about what information is required by various different people. If you were to get this set of plans, are you able to construct that dwelling exactly as intended? So that's the townhouse example. We've also got this one here, which is example for a house in a rural setting. So just a few things once again. So for our project, yes, you are expected to do a title page like this. Once again, note on here, this is an incredibly detailed plan set that goes way beyond what we would expect for in our course, but good reference material. So some things to note on here. We'll have reference here to a bushfire report. So that's one thing that you're going to have to provide in your set of plans. But also we have a revision cloud here showing that these plans have been revised. So call that out. Once again, inclusion of surveyors information. So this is a property on acreage. We've got various different existing structures that have been surveyed. All the location measurements of those have been included on there, and existing house to be demolished. And we've got our contour lines. So our contours are broken up into our dark lines at 1 metre intervals, and then 200 millimetre intervals between that.
So our site plan for 124 Shepherds Hill Road, that one has got all of its contours at 200mm increments. So it's similar level of detail, and this one also shows some spot measurements for areas. Then this is directly taken from the survey plan image that would be held by the Lands Titles Office, so from the original survey, that shows location of easement for access to that property. This is the sort of thing, well, it's not exactly the same as what I'm expecting for Shepherds Hill Road, but it gives an idea. What they've done here, and it's being a rural property, they've got a very large scale, so 1:3,000, but they've taken an aerial image to show the location of the property, and that puts it in context with all the other adjoining properties and existing features, and then produced a simplified overall site plan to show some locations of various different things, as well as include some specific notes, and North Point, by the way. Then a proposed site overall, so that our difference is this is existing, this is what is intended to be done on the site. Following that, a site plan, so we've got a scale of 1:500. Because this is a large rural property, we're expecting a 1:200 size scale for our site at Shepherds Hill Road. But some important things they've included on here is benchmark for this is where all reduced levels are reduced from, and we've got our easement. We've got various different existing features. We have on here a bushfire exclusion zone, so we don't have to use include that for Shepherds Hill Road because we're not in a high bushfire risk area, we're not in a high or flame zone, and we also don't, being close to the main road, we don't need to have specific CFS access or assessment. But possibly some indication of general notes that you may want to include on your plans. And then they've separated, once again, the site plan from their cut and fill plan. So they've produced a cut and fill plan to simplify some of the information that would be on this site plan, because it can get very busy if we include all of the information on one plan. You may wish to do that with yours. Also, another important thing to note is that we've got a north arrow for our overall site plan heading in this direction, so we could fit the north arrow in, but we also include this note saying this drawing has a different north orientation to other plans. Buildings roughly located in relation to site boundaries, etc. Then we flick over and we notice that the north arrow has changed. The reason the north arrow has changed is to make it relate better to our building, so we can fit the building on to these pages in this fashion. You may want to do that with your Shepherds Hill Road property, or you may not. I'll be happy with either approach, as long as you've just been fairly logical in that, and if you do go changing your north arrow, that is made clear to the recipient of the plans. So once again, this is not a floor plan but a set out plan, because this is a very complex building. There are several locations, or how to say it? Yeah, well, several locations for which set out has to be carried out, because this is a fairly complex building with interesting angles, etc. And yeah, showing various different route plans, etc. I'll leave it at that for this set of drawings. By all means, have a flick through and have a look at this one as well. So this one's got a new house example, and the other one we looked at is townhouse example. And just quickly, I'll show you another site plan as well. So a very simple site plan. This is for a unit development. Some other features that are important to include on your property for Shepherds Hill Road that may not have been covered in discussion already. Things like our setbacks, Once again, we have our boundaries. For this plan, our boundaries are actually dimensioned. You can either dimension or you can just list the boundary distance on the side. We show our driveway access, so that driveway access is important to show. We give our title for the improvements to be included. So this is the set of plans for residence 1. So on Shepherd's Hill Road, we would say new dwelling, for example. They've delineated the private open space because that's a consideration for council. They've also delineated the contours for the site and shown the road. And once again, of course, north arrow, title block, etc. So that's the rundown of the, I guess, essentially the example plans which I'll allow you to view through the Learn page, and that should be read in conjunction, or these things should be assessed or viewed in conjunction with these these PDFs or these presentations, which give you lists of expected elements in each plan. As per usual, if you have any queries, don't hesitate to email me. I'm here to provide you with assistance to get you through the process of the planning and building approval. And beyond that, best of luck with your drawings. And also, please note there is Andreas was in yesterday, and we did some work through orientating the building on the site plan at Shepherd's Hill Road. Please look at that video, and also note that it was concluded probably the best approach, or the simplest approach for doing this drawing set, is to be bringing your site plan into your floor plan file. So use the floor plan file because you have your sheets all set up in there. Bring the site into that, and then do the orientation of the building before you create your topo surface. But beyond that, best of luck with everything, and if you have any queries, please let me know. Thank you.